Hello, hello. Today I'm going to show you how I made my mask shield, as I call it. In order to do so, you can find this pattern on my blog, and I will put that in the description. There are 3 different sizes for this. There's a small, which will fit youth, like ages 7 to 12-ish, or more like 10 to 13 probably, or for a woman's small face, or a medium, which should fit teenagers and many women's faces, and then also a large one that will fit men's faces. I've already cut out the pieces that we need, and this one is 2 of the top fabric and 2 of the lining fabric. This right here will become a pleat, and I'll show you that. All of these dotted lines mean that that is your seam allowance. It's a 1/4 inch. So there's a seam allowance here, there's a seam allowance here. This down here is a fold. So back here on our pattern, it does tell us the key for those lines and what they mean. I chose to just use a bandana. Now, the fabric you use, it doesn't matter what you use. However, you will end up with different results based on that. The bandana is very thin, and you can actually kind of see through it, which it has its benefits because if it's lighter, you're not going to sweat as much through it. However, for the lining, am using flannel. And I have not used the flannel yet for one of these, but I decided to use the flannel today because it's so soft. And I thought, I wonder if that will make it softer up against your face, especially for those of us who have to wear them for hours on end. Anyway, I almost made one out of fleece, but then I thought it's hot right now and I don't want to have the fleece on next to my face for that long. So we're going to try it with flannel. I have tried it on the bias, meaning I have cut the pattern onto the fabric on a diagonal so it has more stretch. However, I found that it doesn't provide any benefit or advantage to it. In fact, it doesn't fit and hold its shape to my face as well as I'd like. So I recommend not cutting it on the bias. So I've cut 4 of these, 2 out of the lining fabric and 2 out of the top fabric, 2 cord casings, and this is just out of the top fabric. And then here is my piece of, well, this is my pattern, but the piece of plastic. When you cut your piece of plastic, make sure you place this one on the fold. If you don't, you'll have a seam here, and you do not want a seam right directly in front of your nose and mouth. One of the benefits of having a mask shield is that you can see almost everything without having that piece of fabric going all the way down to your mouth, and the way that it's shaped and contoured to the face, you can see almost, you can see things close. You don't have to hold them clear out in front of you in order to see them. And anyway, and then the shield also makes so that other people can see your mouth and what you're saying. So for me, as a teacher, that is a benefit because I want my children to know that I'm smiling and not upset, or them to be able to pay attention to maybe what I'm saying. And anyway, that being said, I pulled out some, they were like report cover sheets. I had some in my stash, and that's what I've been making mine out of. It's a thicker plastic. However, I pulled out some other things today. We got a package, and this came in it, and I thought, you know what? Okay, yeah, it's very thick. It isn't as transparent. You can definitely still see through it, but it's not as transparent as this, where you can see how clear that is. It is heavier. This is a sheet protector, and it has just about almost the same thickness as this one. And then I also pulled out a Ziploc baggie because I was thinking, what are the different plastic options that people might have readily available? This is definitely the flimsiest, and after feeling these and making some out of these, I don't know that I would use this. However, it might work just fine. So those are some options for you. When you cut out the plastic, another hint I will tell you is to not say or pin this. When I cut my fabric out, I always pin the pattern to it so I get a nice clean cut. However, with the plastic, I didn't want any holes or perforations. So don't pin this to the plastics, just simply cut it out. All right. Okay, in addition to our fabric and our plastic, you need 2 pieces of elastic. And for the large, I believe it's 8 inches. However, you might find that you need to tweak it depending on the size that you need. And then I also have found that I really enjoy or like the results of putting a piece of wire inside the mask right up along the nose piece, and that way it can fit even closer and make so that when I have the wire in, I can wear my glasses and it doesn't fog up. So that's really important for me because I wear glasses, and if without this wire inside, then my glasses will fog up and then it's really hard to see. So I just took a regular piece of pipe cleaner and then I folded it, or not folded, I took the edge, a regular piece of pipe cleaner, I cut it in half, and now I'm just taking the ends and folding them on top of themselves, just a little teeny bit. And the reason why I'm doing that is so that it doesn't puncture a hole through the fabric. That's the only reason for it. And then I'm just squeezing it together so that it falls back onto itself. All right, we're good to go. I am going to sew right sides together the 2 mask pieces and just along this portion. So a 1/4 inch in, and then I will do the same thing with the top piece right along here. Okay? All right, I have sewn the edge of both of them, and now I'm going to clip this. Make sure that you don't clip into the stitching, but you want to have it really close to it and do several of them clips. And the reason for that is because this is a curved piece of fabric, and so you want it to lay flat against your nose and not be bunched up. Okay, now we're going to unfold each of these, and I am going to take and make my pleats. So I'm going to fold that the arrow in half, and it should line up with it on itself. And then I'm going to go about a 1/4 inch in and just come straight down off of the edge. So I'm going to draw a picture for you. Okay, so I've drawn a picture, or I've drawn a line where I'm going to sew that. Notice it ends right about down here, not off of the end. And I'm going to do that with both sides. I folded the right side on top of the right side, and that way after I sew it, the seam won't show on the right side. Okay, so I'm going to do that to all 4 places. So the 2 on the top piece, and then also the 2 on the lining piece. Okay, this is what the back side looks like. And here's what the front side looks like. The purpose for the pleats is for a better fitting mask right around your nose area. And some tips that I found with the pleat is that do some back stitching up at the top and then back stitch right towards the bottom. However, for your pleat to have a nice crisp end and not like a pucker, then you just want to continue to go off of the edge of your sewing machine. So don't just stop it like up here and cut it. You just go right off of the edge. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and separate the seam back here and press it down, and then I'm also going to press these pleats. The pleat is going to go out away from the nose. I'm going to do that with both pieces and then be right back. Okay, so this is what they look like so far, and you can see the nice pleats that come to an end, and I've got both of them done. So now what we're going to do is take and lay them on top of each other, right sides together. I always like to start pinning by matching up that seam. So I line up my seam really well, and then I just put a pin right there. I'm going to do the same thing with my pleats. I'm going to pin them together, and then I will just do a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way along this top part. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end. Okay, so I did leave the pins in for just a second so you could see. I put the pin right up there at the top for that seam where they meet, and then where this pleat seam matches and where this pleat seam matches. I'm going to take and remove the pins and clip just like we did before all along here, and that way it will be able to form around the face as well. Now that I've clipped around all of the edges, especially in the corners, now I'm going to fold this over and press it down. And I want it to be pressed down really flat and crisp. So I'm going to take time to make sure that as I press it down, that it doesn't like look all skitty-wampus, but it really is a nice crisp edge, and the back doesn't show up over, or the front doesn't go fold backwards. All right, and I will press that all the way down. Make sure it is going to be tricky right around the top, and that's okay, but that's what we're going to do at the moment. I like to use the hottest heat setting that your fabric will tolerate. So for mine right now, it's going to be 6. It's going to be the highest. I realized that it might be beneficial to see how I do this. So I'm not using any pins. I'm just sticking my finger in and just kind of pulling it, making sure that those line up really well together, and then pressing it. As you come up to the top, like I said, just work with it a little bit. It takes a little bit of time. And then as you get down around, just work with it. Okay? So as I pull it, I'm making sure that that seam is pretty well right there in the middle. And then you have this nice edge that's ready for it. We're going to insert our pipe cleaner now, and I'm going to show you how I do that. It's tricky to work upside down and backwards. I'm just going to fold it in half so I know where that midpoint is, and then unfold it. That's going to come right up here, and I want to make sure that this seam is towards the back, or towards the back meaning towards the lining. So since I've got the flannel as the lining, I'm going to make sure that that pipe cleaner lays on top of that seam, and then I'm just kind of just pushing it in there and folding it over. That's it. Same thing over here. If you need to bend the wire just a little bit, then that's just fine. I have a spot right there where it does not want to go on top, and that's all right. Okay. All right, so I'm going to fold this. There's one pin that I'm going to put. I'm going to put the pin right up here towards the top, and it's going to be, I'm just trying to push that pipe cleaner in. Sorry about that. So I'm going to put it right here, and then I'm going to sew a top stitch all the way across.